Hey everyone, welcome back to the Node.js series. And today I am going to discuss very important topic, which is the async await. Okay, so let's get it started. So before starting for async await, first let understand what is a synchronous code, that is also known as blocking code, synchronous code or asynchronous code. Blocking code means it will block the execution until the entire process is done. Okay, what it means. So for that, let me import the fs module. Require fs. All right, and now I am using one method of this, that is a read file sync. It is a synchronous method. Okay, for reading the content of the file data.text, and here you can provide some, and you can store the result. All right, okay. So this is the blocking code. What it means. So for example, if I am writing here task started, let me console.log result and console.log task ended. So as I have written this synchronous code, it means first this will execute the line task started. So what will be the output here? Task started. Okay, and content content from the file. Okay, and then task ended. Okay, now let's understand. So first it will execute this line console.log task started. Then execution will go to the read file sync and it will read the content from the file, and it will not go to the next line in synchronous code until it will not complete the processing of the current execution. I hope you got my point. Until it will not read entire content from this file data.text, it will not go to the next line of code. Okay, so this will be the complete block for your applications. Okay, that's why this type code is not suggestible. Okay, when you are working with real world project. Okay, so this is the blocking code where execution is completely blocked until the current execution is not completed. Okay, now let's go to the asynchronous code, which is unblocking code. As it names is, it not block the executions. Let me write the same example here. Read file, give the name of the file data.txt. Here you can give the callback console.log. So this is a callback. I have created independent video for both fs module as well as for the callback. You can read and watch from scratch there. Okay, it takes two parameter always. One is the error, second is the response. Okay, that is known as data. So here you can print the data. So let's say if you are writing here console.log and here you are writing task started, and here you are writing console.log and task end. So what generally happens in interview? So interviewer give you this code snippet to you, and he or she asks about the output of this code. So what will be the output? First it will be task started, then it went to the asynchronous code. It went to the asynchronous code here, right? Okay, as I said that asynchronous code does not block the execution, so it will not block the execution. It went to the next line of the code. So what it will print? Task ended. Okay, what it will print? Task ended. And then finally content of the file. Okay, so let's try to understand in simple word async await. If anyone asks you what is async await, so you can see very simple definition. It is very important feature in modern JavaScript, right? It is very important feature in modern JavaScript which allows you to write the synchronous code, right? Which allows you to write the synchronous code. not synchronous, asynchronous code. It is very important feature in modern JavaScript which allows you to write the asynchronous code that that look look and behave behave like synchronous code, and it is easier to write, debug, and maintain. I hope this is very simple definition. If anyone asks you about async await, it is very important feature in modern JavaScript which enables you or which allows you to write the asynchronous code that look and behave like a synchronous code, and it is easier to write, debug, and maintain. Right? Now let's go to why asynchronous code. Why asynchronous code? So JavaScript by JavaScript is a single-threaded language, which means a single task can be executed at a time. By default, JavaScript is a single-threaded language, which means a single task can be executed at a time. This was the limitations with the JavaScript. Okay. However, Node.js provides non-blocking, means asynchronous, non-blocking input-output. Here you can write input output, which is used to write operations like set timeout, okay, reading the file, as we have seen recently the example, writing the file, queries from the database, HTTP requests, etc. Okay, I will take some more example. Okay, so very simple example, console.log start, and here I am writing set timeout, and here I am writing a callback function, console.log callback function code, and I am giving it 2 seconds. Okay, and then console.log. And so what will be the output of this code snippet? First it will be start, then it will not wait for 2 seconds for this, as this is the asynchronous code. That's why Node.js support this non-blocking input output operations. Okay, so it will print the and after 2 seconds it will call back function code. Okay, so I hope you got the asynchronous code. Try asynchronous code. Okay, next is evaluation of Node.js. So before this blocking code, okay, before this async await and promises, we have a concept known as callback. Callback, same thing like this. This is a callback. Okay, so if you have some scenario like you need to order operations, okay, you give some order, so it will fetch some user. It will fetch some user. Okay, it will provide user ID to the next method, for example, and after fetch user, it prepares some order and it will return the order ID after preparing the order, and based on order ID we make the payment and provide payment ID, and based on this payment ID we generate the invoice, make invoice, okay, or generate invoice, whatever, and it will return the invoice ID, and finally it will return send email. Okay, so this is complete hierarchy where number of functions are called through the callback, while we have one operation, order operations, user make the operations and then prepare order. So this is the chaining of callback. Okay, where next method requires some parameter from the first parameters. For example, prepare order requires some parameters from the fetch users. Make payment requires some details which will be written from the prepare order. Make invoice requires some details which is provided by make payment. So sometimes calling of these chain methods creates some conflict with each others. So this situation is known as callback hell. problem. So to resolve this callback hell problem, we have two ways. One is a promises and second is a async and await. So let first understand what are the promises. Okay, so let's say you have written a simple method const fetch user. All right, and here, so initially how you can see like return 100. Okay, all right, but if you want to write a code through the asynchronous programming, you can return promise dot resolve and here 100. Okay, so this is the way of creating asynchronous code, asynchronous function using the promises. Okay, how you will call this method? Here you can say you have create method with promises. Now how you can get the data from this promise method? Const, here you can see directly fetch users, then and here you can write data and like a callback console dot log and data. So what will be output here? Output will be 100. Okay, so this is the way of promises. Okay, but here is some problem. It is better than callback, but if you have some hierarchy like I have created one GitHub page for all the content where you can read everything. So let's say if you have some hierarchy like this, okay, so it is better than callback, but I'm saying that it is better than callback, but sometimes difficult to read and manage and debug and error handling. Okay, instead of and you can provide some comma. All right. So the best way is async await and await. So like first I have defined the method. Okay. So how I can define a method? Same methods. I'm going to copy here const fetch user bracket and here just you pass the async. Okay, and return 100. Okay, so it is saying that this is the async function. Okay, how you will call? If you are calling this result equal to fetch user, what it will return? It will return to a it will return a promises. Okay, so right way to calling the async function is await fetch user and console log result. So output this time what will be the output? That will be 100. So if you want to make any methods, this is the modern way. This is the arrow function way. You can say arrow function way or modern way. And if you have a similar, you can also define like async function as yeah, fetch user, and here you can return 100. All right. Same way you can call here await fetch user. So these are the various ways to define the methods. This is the arrow way and this is the fetch user. Now, so going to explain one more thing. So I have showcased you one example of this. Okay, this is very difficult. If we write this mechanism instead of promises, if we write in async await, you can have very neat and clean code, right? Just write a start, fetch data, it will fetch the data. It will not block entire process. It will block only your current executions of that functions, right? It execute this, it execute this. Okay, it will not entire block Node.js. Okay, okay, so this is what, and as I'm saying that what it is async function, just adding async keyword in front of functions, that is known as a async function. It is equivalent to this. Okay, output await, await pause the execution. This is very important line. Await pause the execution of async function until the promises is settled, until the promises is settled. All right, so this is I think most of the things which I have discussed, and here is other things as well I have mentioned in this page, you can go through, but whatever important things I have already discussed with you. I want to discuss one more thing with you, which is a promise dot all. Okay, so if you have three independent operations like get user, get product, get category, so instead of calling all three methods independently, we should use the promise dot all. It takes as an array of all the async methods. Here you can pass get users, get product, get categories, and it will, every method will take a 2 seconds, so all the three methods will take a 6 seconds. So it will return the users, products, and categories. So it will make a huge improvement. Okay, if you like this video, please share, subscribe, and comment on this video, and click on the notification icon to watch such kind of videos.